Louis Pasteur should be remembered for more than just inventing the process that keeps milk, wine, and beer from going bad. Louis Pasteur was one of the greatest scientists in history. It is because of Louis Pasteur that we worry about if food is pure, that medical instruments are sterilized, and ultimately that antibiotics and vaccines even work as well as they do. He also came up with the underpinnings of modern biology and germ theory, and in the process he saved upon thousands of millions of people's lives.
Born in Dole, France on December 27, 1822, Louis Pasteur attended École Normale University in Paris before becoming professor of chemistry at the University of Lille. In 1854, he began studying the program of spoilage with beer, wine, and milk.
He proved that the reason these beverages were spoiling was bacteria and other microorganisms were coming in from the outside air. He developed a process called pasteurization, where liquids are boiled and cooled, then thereby getting rid of the bacteria and microorganisms. We also use pasteurization on medical instruments which prevent the spread of disease. Louis Pasteur realized that if germs were the cause of fermentation, then they could also be the cause of contagious diseases. It is because of the research he conducted that we now know to wash our hands to prevent from getting sick.
Development of germ theory. Surgeons and doctors didn't think that something as tiny as a germ could hurt something as big as a human being. So they often didn't even wash their hands before cutting into people. And in those days, surgery was often the death sentence. It was through Pasteur's work that people understood that these infectious diseases were caused by bacteria as well as fungi that were coming from the environment and invading the body. Germ theory in medicine, the theory that certain diseases are caused by the invasion of the body by microorganisms. The theory that certain diseases are caused by the invasion of the body by microorganisms. Organisms too small to be seen except through a microscope. The French chemist and microbiologist Louis Pasteur, the English surgeon Joseph Lister, and the German physician Robert Koch are given much of the credit for development and acceptance of the theory. In the mid-19th century, Pasteur showed that fermentation and putrefaction are caused by organisms in the air. In the 1860s, Lister revolutionized surgical practice by utilizing carbolic acid phenol to exclude atmospheric germs and thus prevent putrefaction in compound fractures of bones. And in the 1880s, Koch identified the organisms that cause tuberculosis and cholera.
Despite skepticism from the medical community, Pasteur continued with his research on germ theory. Eventually, he not only was able to explain the causes of many diseases, but figured out a way to prevent them.
The concept of vaccines wasn't new. Pasteur's unique contribution was to take the actual bacteria responsible for these diseases, weaken them in a lab, and then administer it back as a vaccine to susceptible people. Pasteur's first vaccine discovery was in 1879 with a disease called chicken chloria. After accidentally exposing chickens to a tunated form of culture, he demonstrated that they became resistant to actual virus. Some of the diseases that Pasteur vaccinated were able to work on where to cure were anthrax, coral, or TB, and smallpox. In 1873, Pasteur was elected as an associate member of the Académie de Médecine. In 1882, in the year he was accepted into the Académie de France, he decided to focus his efforts on the problem of rabies. On July 6, 1885, Pasteur's vaccination Joseph Meister, a 9-year-old boy who had been bitten by a rabid dog. The success of Pasteur's vaccine brought him immediate fame. This began an international fundraiser campaign to build Pasteur's institution in Paris, which was inaugurated on November 14th, 1888. The French Academy of Sciences finally accepted the results from Pasteur's germ theory experiment in 1864.
The historical argument that Louis Pasteur made was mostly germ theory, which is very important for the improvement of vaccinations. which means to this day, if Louis Pasteur was not born or did not discover germ theory, coronavirus could be more dangerous and quarantine could have gone on for decades.
This discovery led Pasteur to wonder if it could also work for anthrax, a disease that was especially devastating to sheep and cattle. In 1881, Pasteur successfully demonstrated his anthrax vaccine to the public. Within 10 years, more than 3.5 million sheep and 500,000 cattle have been vaccinated with a mortality of less than 1%.
Although the germ theory had long been considered proved, its full implications for medical practice were not immediately apparent. Blood-stained frock coats were considered suitable operating room attire, even in the late 1870s, and surgeons operated without masks or head coverings as late as the 1890s. Louis Pasteur gave us an understanding of sterile technique and the importance of antisepsis within medicine. Pasteur had been partially paralyzed since 1868 due to a severe brain stroke, but he was able to continue his research. He celebrated his 70th birthday at the Sorbonne, which is attended by several prominent scientists, including British surgeon Joseph Lister. At that time, his paralysis worsened, and he died on September 28, 1985. Pasteur's remains were transferred to Neo-Byzantine crypt at the Pasteur Institute in 1896. In 1888, the Pasteur Institute in Paris was created to further Pasteur's research, which continues to this day. Today, we are all knowledgeable of him or something he has done for us, whether the simple things like keeping milk from going bad for longer time stamps, or if it is simply washing your hands. Louis Pasteur was a very important figure in history, and his legacy will be remembered.
Louis Pasteur's 5 most famous quotes are, "Let me tell you the secret that has led me to my goal. My strength lies solely in my tenacity." His second, "Science knows no country because knowledge belongs to humanity and is the torch which illuminates the world." His third, "The more I study nature, the more I stand amazed at the work of the Creator." His fourth, "Chance favors the prepared mind." And his fifth and final, "The role of the infinitely small in nature is infinitely great."